Am I the asshole for insulting my boyfriend's weight in front of his friends? Relevant to the story, my boyfriend is 6 feet tall and about 229 pounds. I am 5'6" and about 120 pounds. From a medical standpoint, my boyfriend is obese and I am fairly normal weight. I really don't mind his weight. He was obese when I met him and that wasn't a problem for me. He has struggled with his weight for many years and constantly talks about wanting to lose weight but never actually diets or exercises. Again, not a huge deal for me, but I try to be supportive and offer him advice or general encouragement whenever he discusses his desire to lose weight. An occasional point of contention between us is that he has a tendency to offer me diet advice. For example, whenever I make a smoothie, he says, "You shouldn't drink those things, they're full of hidden calories." Or when I do strength training, he says, "You'll just gain weight because you'll put on too much muscle." It's annoying because nutrition and fitness are actually big passions of mine. I'm not an expert by any means, but I've done several courses and I feel I know more than the average person. Plus, I feel that I can demonstrably show that I can manage my own weight. So I don't like that he constantly feels the need to give me advice. This past weekend, he and I met up with a few of his friends at a beer garden. At some point, the guys were talking about their experiences with online dating. My boyfriend said that he'd used Tinder prior to meeting me, but then he deleted it because there were too many desperate fat chicks. He said this in such a disgusted, dismissive way that I genuinely saw red for a second and just blurted out, "Seriously, you're going to criticize fat chicks?" There was a really long, awkward pause, and then one of his friends made a joke and the conversation sort of moved on. But my boyfriend didn't speak to me for the rest of the evening. He texted me the next day and to say that it was incredibly rude and disrespectful to comment on his weight, especially in front of his friends. He says he thinks he wants a few days away from me to decide whether or not he can forgive me. I agree it was rude of me to call him out in front of his friends, but I also think what he said was obnoxious and borderline sexist. I've apologized to him, but I'm not sure if I'm genuinely the asshole here. So, am I the asshole? My boyfriend has a longtime female friend who's clearly into him and I don't know what to do. This is gonna sound like the typical insecure girlfriend, but I promise it's not like that. My boyfriend and I have been together for over 6 months and he's really great. He has a friend that he's had for years who is a girl. Normally, I'm not the type to be all like, "You're not allowed to hang out with a single girl alone," but I'm considering telling my boyfriend that he's not allowed to hang out with this girl alone. This girl is obviously so into him and she definitely wants me to know she's coming for him. She keeps saying stuff like, "You don't know him like I do yet," or "We used to go to that place together all the time long before you guys started dating." She also had cute pet names for him and I didn't like it, and as soon as I heard it, I told my boyfriend I didn't like it and he made her stop. Oh my gosh, Josh, remember when we went on a hike, just the two of us? That was the best date. I asked her straight up if she was into him and her response pissed me off. She was like, "I know it's intimidating how close he and I are, but don't worry, you're the girlfriend, I'm just a friend, right?" With a smug smile on her face. I got so mad, but I couldn't talk to my boyfriend about it. I want to tell him to cut her out of his life so bad, but I don't know if I can do that. My boyfriend's dad passed away 2 years ago with a heart condition. He told me that his dad was his best friend growing up, so it hit him really hard. That's why he says she's like a sister to him. That's why I don't know what to do. I already asked him to set boundaries, like she can't text late at night or come over to his place unannounced all the time and not interrupting our alone time. He was the only family my boyfriend had. Apparently, this girl really helped him get through it. She apparently was there for him throughout the whole thing. My boyfriend doesn't realize that she's into him, and I kind of don't blame him on that because all of her flirts are subtle enough that he doesn't realize, but enough to get me riled up. I know my boyfriend isn't into her at all, and he's completely friend-zoned her, but it's still so frustrating. I hate to admit it, but she's so good at getting under my skin, and I don't know what to do. I really need some advice.
Story time about how my dad and I caught my boyfriend and his wife cheating on us in a tent. So luckily this is not my real mom. This is my stepmom. Her and my dad married a few years ago. So my family and my boyfriend's family are pretty close. My boyfriend's parents and my parents, aka my stepmom and my dad, get along with his parents. A little backstory on my stepmom. After my dad and my mom got divorced, he met her and they started dating pretty quickly. And they got married after only 5 months of having dated. So she becomes my stepmom, but she never really made any effort to get to know me. And I never really liked her. Like, she gave me a weird feeling. So my boyfriend and his family asked us to go on a camping trip one time. And my dad and I didn't really want to go because we never really go out. But my stepmom was super keen on going and she finally convinced us to go, so we ended up going. I mean, in the back of my mind, I was like, wait, why do you want to go to this camping trip so much? We finally get there and set up our camping tents. That's when my dear stepmom says that she doesn't want me and my boyfriend sleeping in the same tent just in case we try to do something. In other words, she didn't want him and I to do the dirty. Why? Because she was hoping that my boyfriend and her would do the dirty. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how my dad and I caught my boyfriend and his wife doing the dirty, literally right next to us. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. So like I said in part 1, my stepmom said that my boyfriend and I couldn't sleep in the same tent because she didn't want us doing anything. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that during this time, my stepmom and my dad were always fighting and they were totally ignoring each other, so they couldn't sleep in the same tent. So basically, my dad and I were sleeping in the same tent. My stepmom was in another tent. We all go to bed and everyone's asleep. That's when I started hearing like the noise of plants ruffling. I ignored it and I went back to sleep. But then I heard some giggling coming from the tent. So I start walking over to my boyfriend's tent because that's where all the giggling is coming from. I was trying not to be heard, and as I started getting closer to the tent, I tripped over and fell into the tent. That's when both my stepmom and my boyfriend start screaming, and I see them sitting naked in the tent. That's when my boyfriend started lying, saying that she forgot something in his tent and that's why she was there. And it gets worse. My dad wakes up and hears all the commotion. He comes over to find his wife and my boyfriend naked. Part 3 of how my dad and I caught his wife and my boyfriend doing the dirty right next to us. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. So like I said in part 2, I fall into the tent and catch my boyfriend naked with my stepmom in it. That's when my dad comes over and sees them both naked. And my dad just started going nuts. He started yelling at my stepmom. My dad was so hurt. And I was too, but I was also in shock from seeing my stepmom naked. I couldn't believe that my boyfriend had been hooking up with my stepmom all this time. And like right under my dad's and my nose. That's when my dad and I were just yelling at them. But then my dad called an Uber and we went home. He went straight to his lawyer and filed for divorce. But of course, my stepmom didn't want to sign the divorce papers, so it took really long for my dad to finally get divorced from that witch. Oh yeah, and I haven't spoken to my ex ever since the day I caught him naked with my stepmom. I never even got an apology, not one from him. Time for shoutouts. I will be choosing one person from my live to give a shout out to on my next story time. So today's shout out is for Cindy_the_tree. Another story time is coming the day after tomorrow. Bye. Story time about how I caught my dad doing the dirty with my best friend. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. My mom and dad have been married for 30 years. My dad started modeling when he was really young and he still does it to this day. Every single time that I would bring a friend over to my house, they would always talk about how cute my dad is. It never annoyed me at all because I was so proud of my dad, but it really bothered my mom. So out of respect for my mom, I would just tell my friends not to say anything. My mom is definitely the jealous type. My best friend and I have known each other for about 3 years. She was the new girl at school and we became friends, and ever since then we've been inseparable. She always comes over to my house, we have sleepovers, and my family really likes her. My mom even takes her shopping with us and buys her tons of stuff. She always comes with us to get manicures and pedicures and facials as well. A few years ago, my mom told me that my dad wasn't faithful to her and it really upset me. Basically, my mom couldn't trust him at all. And ever since then, I've kept an eye on him as well. One day I came home early from work. I see my best friend sitting on the couch with my dad. She was kissing his neck. When they saw me, they got up from the couch part. I see my best friend kissing my dad on the neck. And when they both saw me, they jumped off the couch right away. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. My best friend said, "Oh, you're finally home." And my dad literally just walked toward the kitchen like nothing had happened. Best friend walks toward me to give me a hug, but I stop her straight in her tracks. I asked her why she was kissing my dad's neck. She laughs and said, "Of course I wasn't." And then I said, "I just saw it." And she said that she was just thanking him for all the stuff my mom and dad do for her. Right, I was not buying it. My dad didn't even look me in the eyes after that. I decided not to question her any further, but I was really angry with my best friend. After that, I was totally convinced that there was something going on between them. So I decided to set a trap. I told my mom and dad I would be at work all day and that I would be home really late. And I told my best friend the same thing and that I wouldn't be able to hang out with her. I knew that my mom would be at work all day, which meant that my dad had the house all to himself. I said bye to my dad, but I sneaked back into the house and hid in my room all day. Then I started hearing voices. It sounded just like my best friend. I opened my dad's bedroom door and there they are on the bed doing the dirty. Disgusting. Part 3 is I walk in on my dad and my best friend doing the dirty. They had no clothes on and they were doing it in my mom's bed. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. Because I am so intelligent, I recorded the whole thing on my phone. My father had the audacity to yell at me and tell me to get out of the room. I said no way. Best friend starts dressing herself frantically, begging me for forgiveness. Then my dad tells her to keep her mouth shut. Well, I don't hesitate for 1 second and I send my mom the video that I just recorded. My dad pulls the phone away from me and throws it at the wall. Then he starts trying to negotiate with me. He said, "If you don't tell your mom, I will never do this again, I promise." I told my best friend to go downstairs and wait for me on the couch. My dad starts putting on his clothes and by the time he's done, my mom is home. Of course, my mom went off on my best friend telling her how ungrateful she was. She asked my dad for a divorce. A few days later, I get a message from another friend. She tells me that she also did that with my dad. Since then, 4 other women have told me the same thing. They all go to college with me, so none of them are underage, thank God. My dad is begging my mom back, but she doesn't know what to do. We're both just in shock. Story time about how my wife is trying to turn herself into Kim Kardashian with plastic surgery. She even acts and dresses like Kim Kardashian. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It's sending me on Instagram. My wife has always been a beautiful woman, but ever since 2016, she started talking about getting plastic surgery. Of course, I supported the idea. We are both business owners and we lack no money. She even looked at the plastic surgeon that Kim Kardashian uses, and we went to visit him in Beverly Hills. He told my wife that with 3 surgeries, he could make her look like Kim Kardashian. When I heard 3 surgeries, I got really scared and tried to talk her out of it, but she was obsessed and said that she would do the surgery. I had no choice but to just support her. We stayed stayed in Los Angeles for 2 weeks in a hotel while she recovered. 4 months after her surgery, she was really happy with the results. But then she started changing her face. And this is where I started to put my foot down. She began to get all sorts of fillers in her face. She even did that thing where they lift the corners of your eyes and your eyebrows. By the end of the year, she had spent over 100 grand on surgeries. She basically got her whole body done. I will admit, her body did look amazing, but the face was the problem for me. The woman I fell in love with was not the woman that she was anymore. Her lips were way too big. It got to the point where I was actually embarrassed to take her around my parents' house. Like I said in part 1, her body looked amazing, but her face just wasn't it. I told my parents about how I felt, and they told me I should just be honest with her. So I explained to my wife that I didn't like her new face. I asked her if she could get some of the filler dissolved, not all of it, and she totally flipped out. She said I was being selfish and insensitive, so I had to drop the conversation. But things started to get even worse. She started getting a lot of attention from men. Everywhere we'd go, guys would stare at her, and she would constantly get hit on, even in front of me. I'm not the type of guy to get into fights like that, but I was really close sometimes. Like I said, she also started dressing like Kim Kardashian. She would buy all the clothes from Skims, and she would basically wear lingerie out to dinner. I asked her if she could put on a jacket once, and she told me that I didn't understand her fashion. This is when she also started posting a lot to Instagram. Her Instagram was growing really quickly, and all she kept posting were thirst traps. Once again, I asked her if she could take down some of her posts, but she said no. She obviously enjoyed all the attention, and this made me really insecure. I asked her if there was something that was lacking in our relationship, but of course she said no. After she started getting DMs from all these athletes, my insecurity got so bad that I asked her to close her Instagram. Then one day out of nowhere, she asked me if we could have an open relationship. Of course I said no. Then she threw a tantrum and told me that all her surgery would go to waste if she wasn't able to date other men, especially all the famous people that were sliding into her DMs. I couldn't believe what she was saying. I felt like I had to agree to the open relationship, otherwise she would leave me. Now she goes on dates with all these athletes. One of them even flew her out to New York. My parents and family want me to get a divorce, but I don't want to. I still love her, and after all, she's my wife. Now she's even buying all the designer clothes that Kim Kardashian posts on her Instagram. If you looked at her Instagram, you'd think you were looking at Kim Kardashian. A few days ago, she ripped my heart out by telling me that she didn't want children. She had worked too hard and paid too much money for her body, and she didn't want to ruin it now. That's when I grabbed her phone and took it away from her. I locked myself in the bathroom and deleted her Instagram account. I even deleted all the male contacts in her phone. I told her I'd cut her off financially if she doesn't start behaving again. My family thinks I'm becoming too obsessed with her, but I don't want to let her go. Now she's not talking to me because of the whole Instagram thing. I also threw away all of her Skims clothes. Part of me thinks I should just let her do whatever she wants and still stay with her. I love her too much. What should I do?
Am I the asshole for kicking my husband out of the delivery room? Me and my husband just had our first baby, and my husband was so excited and supportive throughout the pregnancy. Well, the thing is, he's became slightly obsessed with watching videos of husbands pulling pranks on their wives in labor. I didn't mind until he started talking about doing the things he saw in the video, saying it would be funny. I stated my distaste for them and asked him not to do anything like that, and he agreed. He would still joke about it, but I brushed it off because I trusted him. Well, the day of delivery came and I had been in labor for 8 hours. I just finished another round of contractions when my husband let out the largest fart, turned to me and said, "What the hell have you been eating? It smells disgusting." I immediately recognized that as one of the pranks. Outraged at him not honoring what I asked him to do, I demanded that he leave the room. He started arguing, saying that it was just a joke, but I insisted, and luckily the nurse helped me get him out. I went through the last 4 hours of labor by myself since my family lives out of state and I'm not close to my mother-in-law. After delivery, I told the nurse he could come back into the room, and he was fuming. He started demanding that I tell him why I kicked him out, and I calmly told him the reason, but he was pissed. He hasn't talked to me in a week, and his mom is saying that I was a complete bitch for kicking him out. Normally he would defend me, but this time he completely agreed. I think I might be the asshole because I know how excited he was for the birth and to cut the cord. Am I the asshole for calling the police on my fiance? My fiance and I have been together for 3 years. I used to live close to work and use public transportation, but after I moved to his house, which is hours away from work, I bought myself a car. I'm a nurse and there were no hospitals close where I could transfer to. My fiance's car hasn't been working for 2 months now, and it requires so much money to get it fixed, and he refuses my financial help when I offer it. He uses my car. Instead, he occasionally uses my car. On New Year's, he asked me if he could use the car to go hang out with his friends and celebrate, but I said no because I had to work. He insisted and suggested I swap shifts with another nurse, but I couldn't do it. When I got out of the shower, I couldn't find him or the car. I freaked out and started calling for half an hour, but he didn't answer me, and I tried again till one of his friends picked up. I demanded he give the phone to my fiance, but he said they were out and confirmed he took my car and told me that my fiance said that it's better I skip my shift. I couldn't take it and felt so enraged. I told my fiance I didn't consent for him to take my car and that I'd call the police to get it back if he refused to come back with it. He didn't take me serious, so I called the police. Him and his friends were taken to the police department. I got my car from there and still went to my shift. My fiance said I was out of my mind to call the police on him and put him in this situation. But I told him he made me do this.
I literally almost got beat up by a full-grown man yesterday. Like, he literally tried to fight me. A 40-year-old man was literally so scared, it's not even funny. He was so close to my face, I thought he was gonna, like, swing at me. Spoiler alert, he did. He's sitting there screaming at me for a couple minutes, and all of a sudden, I see this dude's arm, like, cock back. Like, he's literally about to punch me in the face. I back up, and my boyfriend, like, runs in between us and shoves him off. And then the dude's friend came, he's like, I'm so sorry, he's so drunk. Okay, well, don't get that drunk where you're gonna fight a literal child. So yeah, after that, I went into the Uber and I was crying because I was so scared. So that was a great way to start off 2022. Happy New Year's.
And my baby's mama is vicious and spiteful. The kids came in and I just told them that unfortunately I can't afford Christmas this year, and it's because of their dad who took it away from them by taking the money I saved. There was utter silence, and my husband glanced at me in disbelief. He told the kids to go to their rooms and screamed, asking what the F is wrong with me, and why did I choose to spout that kind of BS in front of the kids. I said it's the truth and that I sacrificed to save money to give the kids some joy this holiday. Then he selfishly took the money and gave it away. He said he would pay me back in time before Christmas, but I don't see how this is possible since he doesn't even have gas money. He got pissed and said I shouldn't tell the kids that he took their Christmas money and that the psychological damage I'm doing to the kids is worth a lot more than the money, and accused me of turning the kids against him and making them resent him for trying to help out a family member and spent time with his family. He accused me of causing my children mental traumas by saying their dad took Christmas away from them and alienating them from him. The kids know that mommy is the one that brings the money home, and so if Christmas gets canceled, they'll think it's because of me. I had many conversations with them about this, and the last thing I want is them to be disappointed in me for something that is not my fault. But am I the a-hole?
Storytime about how I became obsessed with my doctor and faked a heart attack just to see him. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I'm 26 years old and desperate for a husband. I come from a very antiquated family. My parents think I'm already an old maid because I haven't had kids, and that no man will ever want me because I'm too old. For the past 4 years, I've been on a mission to find a husband. I signed up to a bunch of dating apps. I went on so many dates, but still never found anyone I was compatible with, or anyone that wanted to marry me for that matter. Last year, we had a COVID scare in my family and we all went to get tested. I started feeling a little bit sick, so I went to a doctor. This doctor, let me tell you, when he walked into the room, I nearly fainted. He was the most gorgeous man I'd ever seen in my life. He was also so nice because obviously he was my doctor, but he seemed so caring. I quickly became infatuated with him and kept making up excuses to have to go see him. I even came up with this plan that I was going to get him to fall in love with me. I told my mom and she ended up telling my dad, and they thought I was completely crazy. I stalked the doctor on social media and found out that he wasn't married. He did have a girlfriend though, but this was no problem for me. I would do my makeup and dress up really nice just to go see him, but this backfired on me. That's when he told me that I was a hypochondriac and that I was probably just imagining/faking all my symptoms. I pretended to act outraged and I said absolutely not. He told me I just needed to relax. But this is the best part. He complimented me on my hair, and that's when I convinced myself that he was in love with me. From that day on, I would follow him everywhere. Anytime he would go to buy coffee, I would end up being there, and we would just casually bump into each other. I thought he wasn't suspecting anything, until one day I get home and my parents sit me down to tell me that the doctor noticed that I had been following him everywhere. And he also asked them to find me a new doctor, and that he could no longer see me. I was devastated. I felt like he had broken up with me. My parents forbade me from going near his office, but this didn't stop me. I decided to go straight to his house and confess my feelings. As soon as he opened the door, I told him that I loved him and that I just wanted to have his children. He did not take this very well. He told me to leave. When I got home, my parents didn't let me out of the house for a few days. So I did what I had to do. I faked a heart attack and insisted that the only doctor I wanted to see me was him. My parents had no choice but to take me to him. That's when he told my parents that I had made everything up and that I did not have a heart attack. It's been almost a year and I'm still trying to find ways to get back into his life. I'm running out of excuses. Can you guys help me think of some? Yes, I know this is a little bit crazy, but I know that he could fall in love with me and we would be very happy. What do you think I should do?
Am I the asshole for peeing in the cat tray? Me, 29 female, and my partner, 25 male, have been dating for 3 years and have lived together for one of those. We live in a small one-bedroom flat that has one bathroom with our 2 cats. I'm diabetic and I'm on a number of medications, and one of them basically flushes sugar straight through my system and can make me pee a lot. I can go from not feeling like I need to pee to if I don't pee in the next 20 minutes, I'll pee myself. It comes on suddenly. Well, my boyfriend has IBS and he can spend 40 minutes in the bathroom easily sometimes, and this hasn't been a problem for us this far. Today, though, he had a bad IBS moment, and after 40 minutes locked in the bathroom, I felt I really needed to pee. I figured he wouldn't be long. I knocked on the door and let him know I needed to pee, and I asked how long he'd be. He said he'd be a few minutes, no problem. 20 minutes later, I'm kind of doing the potty dance a little and knock on the door again. He says he's gonna need a few more minutes, and I tell him I'm not gonna be able to hold it much longer. I asked if he could unlock the door and I'll just hop in the shower, and he says he can't get off the toilet right now. Fair enough. 15 minutes later, my bladder's hurting and he hasn't flushed yet. I figure, F it. I pop a squat over the litter tray in the corridor and have a tinkle and use a kitchen towel to wipe. I then bagged the tray and refreshed it. When he came out, I told him what I did, and he gives me an absolutely disgusted look and says that is revolting.
Story time about when I smacked my friend's neighbor with a sandwich. My friend Jenna moved into a nice new condo last month, and I finally got the chance to check it out for the first time today. I ended up arriving before she got home from work, so she told me to let myself in with the spare key under the potted plant and to make myself comfortable. I made myself a sandwich and was meandering around while eating and checking out her swanky new place when the front door opened and a really large, unfamiliar man with a duffel bag came in. This dude was intimidating, and I'm a 4'11" woman, so I was immediately scared. I look at his duffel bag and realize that I surprised some piece of shit burglar. I panicked and threw my sandwich at his face, then locked myself in the bedroom. I'm shaking and he pounced on the door yelling at me to get the fuck out. I start screaming at him to get the fuck out and that I'm calling the police, which is a total bluff because I didn't have my phone. He then yells back that he is calling the police on me. This gives me pause. At this point, I look around and realize the bedroom that I'm in definitely appears to be of male persuasion. I ask him through the door if he knows Jenna, and he tells me yes, that she's his next door neighbor. Well, apparently, Jenna's neighbor also keeps a spare key under a potted plant. That's when I realized that I totally messed up. I explained everything and apologized profusely and cleaned up the sandwich, pastrami on rye. After he calmed down and realized I wasn't a crazy lady, he found it pretty funny and wasn't mad. We were outside in the area between their condos when Jenna came home. We told her the story and she was cracking up. I suggested they find better places for their spare keys because apparently that's a really common spot, and next time I might not be around to throw a sandwich at a burglar. So I'm a 20-year-old single dude living with my parents still. I have a job and everything and plan to move out soon. My brother, 25, has obviously already moved out and has his own place. He's had several girlfriends for the past 6 years since he moved on. Plenty of times I thought he found the one, but didn't. Recently I found out that he's been in love with his new girlfriend, Hannah. As you couldn't already tell from her name, Hannah is of Japanese descent. I was really curious to see what she looked like as I have a personal preference for Asian women. It's nothing creepy, I just like how they look. My brother said us to meet her in person and said that I'd really like her. He came over to introduce Hannah to me and my parents. And man, Hannah was absolutely beautiful. Long hair, nice skin. My brother absolutely scored. I was friendly to her right away. My dad cooked us a feast as a way to get together and also get to know Hannah better. Hannah shared a lot about herself. She shared about her childhood and how she was bullied for being Asian and as a result felt insecure about her looks. My mother talked about how Hannah was a beautiful and kind young woman and they're glad we met her. I immediately agreed and went on a bit of a tangent. I said how it's ridiculous anyone could bully you because you're so beautiful. Asian girls are one of the most beautiful women in the world, with their skin, eyes, and how they're definitely the cutest type of women out there. I pointed out that I liked how short they were and how I love how most of them never have to worry about their weight to maintain their appearance. My brother kind of gave me a glare and Hannah got up to excuse herself and said that she needed to go to the bathroom. My mom and dad said I went completely overboard and most likely made her uncomfortable. My brother came back saying they're leaving and headed off. The next day, I get a text from my brother about how uncomfortable I made Hannah and how it seemed like I was fetishizing her. I found this ridiculous because I was just praising her and finding her beautiful. He proceeded to call me a creep and said I was objectifying her and that I owed her an apology. But I've literally been nothing but nice. I told my friends and they agreed with me that Hannah reacted too sensitively, but my parents agreed with my brother that I should have apologized. Am I the asshole for making people at the table uncomfortable?
I'm literally so mad right now. My father is trying to kick me out. But here's the funny part. I'm not even home. I'm across the country in Las Vegas with my boyfriend, and he's trying to kick me out. So basically, for my birthday, my boyfriend got me and him tickets to go down to Las Vegas, stay at his friend's house. And we were gonna be down here for New Year's Eve, having a fun little time in Las Vegas on New Year's Eve. We were gonna stay down here for 9 days. And I'm literally here right now, like I'm still here. Well, basically, we got here on New Year's Eve. We were out till like 2 in the morning. We didn't get back here till like 3 in the morning. So I was too tired to take off my makeup or brush my hair. So I just went to bed with my makeup on. I wake up the next morning, my hair a mess, my makeup all over my face. And I thought it was gonna be, haha, so fun to make a little TikTok while I look like a hot mess. So I make a TikTok while I look like crazy and I posted it. And I didn't think anything of it. I was like, oh, just a little funny TikTok. Well, like 2 days later, I ended up on one of my family's For You pages, and they can't mind their own business, so they decided to send it to my dad. They sent him the TikTok where, like, my hair and makeup's all messed up, and they're like, do you even know what your daughter's doing down there? Look at this video. So this man watches the video, loses his mind. This man lost his mind. He calls me and screams at me for 10 to 15 minutes. I can't even get a word in. He's sitting there screaming at me, saying how I'm doing stuff I'm not supposed to be doing, yada yada. What? You are jumping to conclusions. It was a lighthearted TikTok. My hair and makeup was messed up because I was too tired to take it off. Seriously? But then he basically told me that things are gonna change when I get back home, basically meaning that I'm not allowed there anymore. So yeah, all of that because I made a TikTok where my hair and makeup was messed up. But I'm not gonna let that ruin the rest of my time in Vegas. And trust me, I tried to tell this man no, I was just too tired to take off my makeup. And then he was like, there's only one way you'd be too tired to do any of that. So yeah, I love my life. I can't even have fun on vacation without being yelled at. Across the country.
I'm 28 female, repulsed by my husband, 36 male. I fold the laundry and I've recently noticed an uptick in skid-marked boxers. One pair I could let go. Everyone has had more trust in a fart than it deserved, at least once, but it's becoming a weekly thing. He's also put on quite a bit of weight since marriage, and I realize that's incredibly shallow of me to say. He has always been a bigger guy, but he has increased his mass by 33% and is now edging dangerously close to 400-pound territory. I've told him that his hygiene is slipping a bit. You need to brush your teeth in the morning and scrub with a washcloth. I shouldn't smell any musty cheese when I get down there. He thinks I'm trying to be funny and just joking around. I don't know how to be more blunt. The sheets on the bed look like I snuggle up with a KFC chicken thigh. He got a gaming laptop a while back, and in a typical day, he says 3 words to me and acts annoyed if he has to take off his headphones to hear me. I want a loving, intimate marriage. I feel like a troll that lives on the front porch and only scurries out to cook and do the laundry. Mom kept pooping on the shower floor and doesn't care if others step on it or if it smears all over the shower drain. We have a fully functioning toilet in our house, of course, and we don't have a bathtub, just a simple shower room with a drain on the floor and a shower head on the wall. I used to stand bare feet on the floor while I shower until one day I stepped on a piece of poop near the shower drain. It was really gross, and we don't have any pets in the house. While I knew my mom just took a shower right before me,
Storytime about how I found out my boyfriend's ex-girlfriend was spying on us in the bedroom. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. My boyfriend and I have been together for 1 year. Our relationship is really good. We're like best friends and we tell each other everything. He always wants to spend time with me and we're planning on moving in together. Our families love each other and they're looking forward to us getting married someday. I'll call my boyfriend Dan. When Dan and I started dating, he told me that he had a really crazy ex. He was extremely controlling and didn't let him hang out with his friends or even his family. And when he broke up with her, she went nuts. She actually told her family that he was abusive just to get back at him. When we got together, Dan told me that he was scared his ex might try to do something to us. I told him not to worry, that she wouldn't do anything at all. Boy, was I wrong. Dan had his own apartment and I would stay at his place most nights. And of course, we did stuff in his bedroom. One night that we're on his bed doing stuff, I see a little tiny lens on his bookshelf pointing straight to us. I hadn't noticed it before, so I asked him what it was. He said he didn't know, so he went to it and pulled it out. It was a tiny little camera. Part 2 is up. When my boyfriend and I are doing the dirty on his bed, I notice there's a little lens pointing straight at us. He goes to grab it and we realize it's a little camera. The whole time we've been doing stuff on his bed, it's been recording us. That's when my boyfriend Dan said that it must have been his crazy ex. Let's call her Casey. He had told me that she was really crazy, but I didn't think she was that crazy. Dan starts looking throughout his whole apartment and he finds 2 more little cameras. One in the kitchen and one in the bathroom. As you can imagine, we didn't sleep that entire night. Of course, we went to the police and they opened an investigation, but they said they couldn't find anything. A week later, I get a DM from Casey, his ex-girlfriend. She starts abusing me through DM, calling me a bunch of names. She even said that I stole Dan from her, but I hadn't even met Dan when they broke up. Then she sends me a picture of my house, which means she knows where I live. I go straight to my boyfriend's apartment, and when I open the door, guess who's there? Casey is sitting on the couch with my boyfriend. It gets scarier. Part 3 is up. My boyfriend's crazy ex is sitting on the couch, and I'm terrified. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. She had just finished sending me a bunch of DMs on Instagram, totally abusing me. But my boyfriend didn't know this. I walk into the apartment and they're both sitting on the couch. She turns around and asks him, is that her? My boyfriend looks at me with a serious face and says, yes, that's her. Then she shows me DMs on Instagram that I had supposedly sent to some guy, and that she passed herself off as this guy to see if I would fall. And the messages were so dirty and disgusting. I tell my boyfriend that's not me and that I would never do that to him. He just stares at me and doesn't say anything. That's when I try to show him all of the DMs that she had just sent me, but I noticed they were all gone. She actually unsent every single DM. Now I had no proof and it was just her word against mine. That's when I accused her of planting the cameras in our bedroom. She actually smiled at me and turned around and told my boyfriend she would never do that. Then she slapped. My boyfriend's crazy ex slaps me and lunges at me. Of course, I start attacking her right back. My boyfriend separates us finally and asks both of us to leave his apartment. I was so crushed that he didn't believe me. So far, she had spied on us in bed, hacked my Instagram to send DMs to herself to make it look like I was talking to another guy, and threatened me by telling me that she knew where I lived. Oh yeah, and she physically attacked me too. I left my boyfriend's apartment and a few days later he comes looking for me. I explained everything to him and he said he had no choice but to believe me. His ex was too crazy. Then he told me that she went back to his apartment that night and picked his lock. She got naked and crawled into his bed. He woke up, kicked her out, and went straight to get a restraining order. Scanned his apartment for more cameras and found 2 more. What should we do? My best friend's boyfriend starts DMing me on Instagram. He confesses that he had a crush on me when we were in college together, and I told him that I did too. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. From that day on, he would DM me every single day and we would just flirt back and forth. I started feeling really guilty and I told him one day I can't do this anymore. That's when he told me he also felt guilty and that the best thing was for us to stop talking, so we did. I was so sad. A few weeks passed by and my best friend asked me if she could have the apartment all to herself because she's planning a romantic dinner for him. I said yes, but I felt so jealous. I left the apartment because I realized that I was so in love with him. I went to the supermarket and ate a whole pack of Oreo cookies and went to the movies. I get a text message from my best friend asking me to come home immediately. My stomach sank and I thought she had found out. When I get there, she's crying and she says that he broke up with her. I asked if he said why and she said because he was in love with another woman. My stomach sank again. I was there with her the entire night while she cried, knowing her boyfriend left her because of me. Part 3 is up. My best friend's boyfriend had broken up with her because of me. I didn't have the heart to tell her. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. A few days later, she started going out on Tinder dates again. I could see that she was feeling better, so I decided to confess to her everything. And she told me she could tell that he and I liked each other. Then she told me I should date him. Well, I didn't waste any time. I sent him a text message and asked him if he wanted to meet up for dinner. And when we did, he asked me to be his girlfriend. We did it for 6 months before he proposed. He even got my name tattooed on his neck. The only problem is that my mom thinks he might do the same thing to me. I don't even want to think about that because I truly believe that he loves me. But let's hope not. I've been planning the wedding and I asked my best friend to come. Of course she said yes. She's super happy for me. And she actually has a boyfriend now. Do you guys think my fiance will end up doing the same thing too?